Good evening and welcome to Open Your Mind Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
Myself, Stephen George. Good evening.
Good evening and Happy New Year. Our first show of 2018, January 7th. It's great to be back on. We hope everybody had a great Christmas and a Happy New Year. It seems to be, myself and Steve were just talking there just before we went live about January being 5 weeks, and the amount of bills that seem to come in January is just unbelievable. And you're playing catch up and robbing Peter to pay Paul, but there you go. You never know. We might be lucky this year. Things might happen and things might work out for the best, but we'll see what happens anyway. Now, just a quick comment I just want to make here. News just in off the teletype that, if you remember them, you're as old as us. The lamestream media has reported today that Peter Sunderland is dead, died at the age of 71. Now, for people who are not familiar with Peter Sunderland, he was Attorney General in Ireland, 71 years old. He was involved with the Blinderbergers, and he apparently or allegedly was the elephant in the room on the night where the Irish government decided to pay the bondholders and put Ireland into a spiral of debt and poverty. So we've passed on now. We know there's a big clean-up with the Cabal at the moment that's going on, and people are going missing, or people are dying, or people are being made redundant, their jobs have gone. So is this part of the clean-up? I don't know, but I think the devil's going to be busy because he's definitely not going to heaven with the things that he did. But, so there you go, just an update, just to, off the teletype, hot news just in there. Right, before we crack on, we'll just tell you that our guests on tonight are Miles Johnston from the Basis Project, and at the end of the show, we're going to bring a chap called Tom Ryan on, who's going to be, he's going to be on the Open Mind Conference down in Waterford. He's going to be talking, so Tom's going to come on and give us a chat about what he's going to be talking about at the conference. But before we go on and talk about a few bits and pieces, let's find out what the communication channels are.
Okay, communication channels this evening.
The communication channels are email info@oymireland.com, by phone 046 937 1212, and you can also contact us direct through the OYM chat room.
Okay, yes, info@oymradio.com is the email address, the all-important email address, as we say. If you're new to the show, or if you're listening to the podcast for the first time, drop us an email, just let us know where you're listening from. We'd love to hear. We also have the chat room on the website as well. If you log on to oymradio.com, you will see the link there for the chat room. If you're registered, you will be able to log in, and a big hi to everyone already logged in there. Also on the website, you will see the links there for Facebook, the anti-social media, also for Twitter. Still haven't figured that one out yet. Twitter and the YouTube channel as well, and also the TuneIn Radio Link app. There's a download button there for that. That's a free application. You can listen to us all over the place on different devices. And Radio Garden. Yes, we're on Radio Garden as well. So if you fire up radiogarden.com, you will see a link or a picture of the world. Just kind of navigate your way down to Ireland, and you'll see a couple of little dots. We are one of those dots. Yes, we've made an impression. Anyway, we also have People's Internet Radio as well, monitoring the chat room over there also for your questions this evening. That's it.
Great stuff, Steve. Right, I know some people might say Ding Dong, the witch is dead, but in this case I think Ding Dong, the warlock is dead. One of a few that have to go, but there you go. Right, Steve, you're going to kick us off.
Yes, I'm going to kick us off. Some news in from the journal.ie. It says, here's how the banks plan to rebuild trust after the tracker mortgage scandal. It's been described as the biggest financial scandal of our time. The tracker mortgage scandal, which saw thousands of homeowners overcharged by their banks on their mortgage. Latest figures show that over 33,700 people have been overcharged since the introduction of the product back in the 1990s. While the tracker mortgage offers a fixed rate added onto the European Central Bank's moving interest rate, the bank crash in 2008 led many customers to move off the tracker and then onto a fixed or variable rate period for a period of time. But when a large number of them tried to switch back to their tracker, which they were fully entitled to do, the banks told them they couldn't. And so people were charged a higher rate of interest on their mortgage than they should have been. The issue first came to public attention back in 2012. Compensation of $76 million has been paid out by March of this year. A number of customers told us their stories, and others shared their experiences with the government's financial committee. Today, Minister for Finance Pascal Donohoe TD, who described the scandal as the biggest one of our time, said he welcomes a proposed initiative from the banking industry in Ireland that aims to start the process of rebuilding trust and confidence in the industry following the tracker mortgage scandal. He said the 5 chief executives of the main retail banks, Allied Irish Banks, Bank of Ireland, KBC, Permanent TSB and Ulster Banks, have been told the Department of Finance that they intend to establish an Irish Banking Standards Board. They say this board will be broadly modelled on the Banking Standards Board, which operates in the UK.
But the banks in the UK have just been caught for doing fraud and swindling.
Yeah.
I've just seen the post up, they're going to be fined. So exactly what standards are they talking about? I mean, trust in the bank. Well, when the banks come out and tell you that the money doesn't exist and it's all fiat currency and usury and all that kind of stuff, that's honesty. But they're not going to come and tell you that, because that will go against the survival of the bank. So, yeah, good luck with that, Pascal, you know. Right, and the other thing that's on our list here is, it was in the Irish Mirror.ie, and it said calls to lock up peddlers of fake cancer cures, as new laws could mean they face jail or hefty fines. Fine Gael's Kate O'Carroll, just remember that name, Fine Gael Kate O'Carroll, wants to propose laws that make it a crime to advertise or offer a cure for cancer with methods that have not passed medical trials. Well, I don't know of anybody offering a cure, Steve. Do you know anybody offering a cure for cancer? Have you ever seen it advertised?
No, not a cure, no.
Not at all. Cranks offering medically unproven cancer treatments, oh, you mean, you know, things that like chemo and radiation, could face jail or hefty fines if proposed new laws are introduced next year. So their approved treatments like chemo and radiation are good for you. Fine Gael Kate O'Connell has revealed she wants to propose laws that make it a crime to advertise or offer a cure for cancer with the methods that have not passed medical trials. Miss O'Connell, who is also a pharmacist, she's a pharmacist, isn't that quite convenient?
Vested interest there.
Yeah, hopes her plans will crack down on homeopaths, fake healers and fake medical practitioners targeting vulnerable cancer patients with treatments that can contain toxic ingredients. Toxic ingredients?
Just like chemotherapy.
Just like chemotherapy and radiotherapy.
Yes.
Wasn't that chemotherapy was based on mustard gas, if memory serves me well. Now, in the UK, anyone advertising or offering bogus cancer cures can be jailed for 3 months or fined. Miss O'Connell wants similar laws for Ireland. So remember that name, people, when it comes to voting. Kate O'Connell from Fine Gael, you know, again, trying to control the system, and she's a pharmacist. You know, well, see, that's one name for her anyway. But we'll just say that. Right, okay, so how's your week, Steve?
Yeah, my week's been very busy. Probably like everyone else there who's lucky enough to have a job at this time. We were back to work on Tuesday, and it's been nose to the grindstone ever since. We're quite busy, so I suppose I came in tonight complaining of how busy we were, and Alan said he kind of put things in perspective and says that's a good complaint to have. Exactly. I suppose it is. A lot of people who don't have a job, so yeah, I'm lucky enough in that respect. However, this is something else we spoke about as well. I don't know if anyone else is noticing the same things or have come across the same things. Let us know in the chat room, just for the hell of it. And that is household items breaking. Just breaking, stop working for no apparent reason. Yeah. Although Alan did say that he has some inside information on this, and that there is a reason for it. But yeah, I mean, a couple of things have broken in our house. The car went, that kind of has gone. It had to be repaired during the week. We also had the shower. The shower broke, and the vacuum cleaner. So, and a vacuum cleaner just after Christmas, taking the Christmas tree down, having to get the sweeping brush out, and manual labour. I did not like it one bit. Anyway, the only other thing I want to mention is I heard a documentary. Well, it wasn't a documentary. It was kind of a news piece during the week on BBC. I think it was BBC Radio. I can't remember if it was BBC Radio 4 or BBC Radio Ulster. It was one of those anyway. But they'd done a news piece on AI. and how AI is going to affect us in the future. And they were talking about, you know, the way things are at the moment. You have all these devices that you can purchase, and you can have them sitting in your house, and you can ask them questions and put on a playlist and whatever, all these wonderful things. And they were really kind of making it sound like, you know, it was the greatest thing since sliced bread, and by having all these devices connected up to the internet, i.e. the likes of your fridge and stuff like that, and these little devices that you talk to, they were saying that, and smart TVs, they were saying that, you know, it's kind of, it's going to be normal in 10 years' time that what we're seeing now, the chap said, is only the tip of the iceberg. That in 10 years' time, everything is going to be smart. There'll be nothing that won't be smart.
What about the politicians? We're still waiting on them.
Well, I think that they'll be the last thing to get the upgrade. I don't think we'll ever have smart politicians.
Yeah, no, that's yeah.
AI, yeah. So that's basically what they're saying. And there was a lady on as well, and this is kind of where it gets strange. I had a chuckle at this one. You know these Alexa things where you go, Alexa!
I was going to get one for the mother-in-law.
Yeah. She's not from a place called Agadooey by any chance,
no,
because if she is, they don't recognise the voice from Agadooey, as this lady on the piece said. She said she bought one, she got one for Christmas, and she said she spent numerous times trying to speak to the thing, get it to play a playlist or get the weather forecast, and she said it just wouldn't work. And she said, I think it's because I'm from a place called Agadooey, and she said it doesn't understand the accent. But she said if I speak in the Queen's accent, there's no problem.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So there we go. That's it in a nutshell. Anyway, how was your week?
Not too bad. Before we bring Miles in, just a couple of things. Like Steve, there is breakdown of equipment, and this week I've been the repairman for doing a number of fix-it jobs. I've got car issues as well. My partner's got car issues. So apparently there is something going on. It's got to do with an energetic change going on. And Thomas did talk about it on his show, and we'll touch base with Thomas about it, because a lot of people seem to be experiencing it, and just very, very strange. But you know, maybe Miles might know something about it. We'll talk to Miles in a minute and see what he knows. But just something that I came across during the week which I thought was interesting. And you know, when we say sir, you know, yes sir, no sir,
and
sir, whatever,
yes,
and all that kind of stuff. Well, apparently somebody put up the meaning of the word sir, and it said, you call everybody by title sir. You know what is meant by word sir. It means slave I remain. That's apparently what it stands for. Slave I remain. The British, during their rule, wanted all Indians to address them as sir, even after 69 years of independence. We still keep calling everyone sir. Even the American president is addressed Mr. President, not sir. Many people do not know the real meaning of the word and think it is an address with respect. Frankly, even I also didn't know it. Spread this message fast, how intelligently they rule and how foolish we are, still doing their bidding. Stop calling everyone sir. So that's interesting, that if it's called slave I remain, sir. Just another play on words, because we know we talk about words and what they mean and all that kind of stuff. So that was quite interesting. Right.
What about the women though? Ma'am, yeah. Is there one for that as well?
I don't know. We'd have to wait for that to come along. There might be somebody who knows words. You know, send us in a definition of that if you can. Right, let's crack on and we get our guest in. We have Miles Johnston on from the Bases Project. Good evening, Miles. How are you doing?
Are you calling me some kind of a palm?
Of course not. You're an Irishman. What can we say?
Prisoner of Her Majesty. Is that what that stands for? The pommies?
It's called Slave I Remain, sir.
Yeah, but in Australia, that's why they call people who are there pommies.
Oh, right, okay.
Prisoner of Her Majesty or His Majesty's pleasure or something.
Ah, there you go. See, there's always something behind it, isn't it?
You didn't know I knew that, did you?
No, you didn't know. Well, listen, we want to get into... First of all, we want to say thanks very much for having us at the Bases Conference and doing a talk. We thoroughly enjoyed it. Great people there, great audience. And the editing that you did on the video was first class. Well done.
Well, it was actually mixed live by John Captain. He did a bit. And the hotel provided a guy after we had a slight mishap on the first day, being moved. Okay. I've often moved to tears, but they moved us from one room to the other, and I probably bellyached about that enough. But they did actually give us a couple of technical people, which made a huge difference. If you have another pair of hands, we got the whole thing re-rigged. And this guy stayed on it. He mixed it and did a very good job. And I just sort of sat back here and topped and tailed it. And the ability to go live was a major plus. And we got about 27,000 views of the conference online. In fact, some guy called Van Morrison, he had a look and said it was nice. So very successful, and down to a very, very good ground crew there, led by a former founding member of the Irish UFO Research Centre, going back to 1972, I think, Chris Gaffney.
Yeah. Well, Chris is on the chat room at the moment, and he's listening in. So well done, Chris, for all the hard work that you've done with the team there, and Katrina and everybody else. Fantastic. We totally enjoyed it, and
if that's what the ground crew did, they really did a fantastic job. And I have to say that when all hell broke loose at the end of the first night, I mean, a lot of people really helped. I mean, everybody knew there was a screw up. There's no point complaining about it. Although I had to do my act, to sort of show that I was absolutely mortified.
Yeah.
You gotta play on with these things.
Yeah, no problem at all. Well, tell us what you've been doing. Apart from the Basis Conference, you haven't been on the show for a while, and you cover a major amount of subject matters. So, for people who haven't heard you or know you, can you give us a quick bio on what you cover?
Well, I started out in the 1970s covering UFOs, come down to Ireland, up that Dublin road when it was a road as opposed to a motorway. Took 3 or whatever, and been into UFOs since I've been a wee boy, when I had curly hair, strawberry blonde. I was never ginger. And speeding along way back in the 1990s, I heard a story. I sort of got back into the UFO thing after doing all the pirate radio with Kiss FM and all that stuff on the border, running around putting transmitters on. I used to actually be on Big D radio in Dublin at night. I was a jock.
Okay.
DJ. There are tapes of that crime in circulation. In fact, we're going to have we put on a 1 megawatt station 30 years ago out of Monaghan, because while you guys were having a great time all those years ago with millions of radio stations all over the country, we had practically nothing in the north, and though you had border stations spilling over. So we put on a station called Kiss FM 103.7, not realizing that the numbers 1, 3, and 7 have got an esoteric meaning, but of course it was all planned. And we went on from Monaghan, and that was really what we did on the first day of the conference. We took Kerry Cassidy, Sandra Fecht and her team of experiencers in satanic ritual abuse, which has now all gone mainstream. I mean, Mel Gibson's talked about it in the BBC and briefed everybody about Hollywood and all that. So that's all mainstream. I mean, we're not fringe anymore.
Yeah,
well, I don't know what we're going to do. We're not fringe. You're all getting rather mainstream now.
And what's your take on, I mean, an awful lot has been, we were told 2 years ago that a lot of stuff is going to be coming out in the mainstream, and, people are going to wake up because it's going to be in their face. What's your take on what's happening now with everything that's coming out now?
Well, that is the whole point. That's why the conference was called Ireland Awakens, because Ireland woke up in the 1960s. And it started in Belfast, although I don't know if it actually started in Belfast itself, but there was an awakening then, and then something happened to shut that down. And one of the symptoms of that awakening is in 2 characters. One's Terry Hooley, which has been a very good book written about called Hooley Again, and the BBC, some independent producers managed to get a BBC film about his early life in the 70s. And all that, with punk rock in the north and all that, released. And that was an indication of a major consciousness wake up in the 60s. And a guy called Van Morrison started writing some incredible songs. And it was amazing that he was actually listening in and watching the conference. And he's a big fan of Kerry Cassidy. And obviously, he's a bigger fan of Kerry Cassidy, but she's better looking than myself. And then, I mean, he is attending these conferences when they're held in the manor up in Watford in up north of London, at the UFO Academy. So what was happening was there was this awakening, and then we had the Troubles. And this is why I had Michael Shrimpton, who's a former QC, who blew the whistle on 2 nuclear weapons which had been stolen from the deliberately sunk Kursk submarine, and both those 2 nuclear warheads were smuggled onto the British mainland. That's at the Olympics for a little false flag, blame it on the Russians, explosion during the Olympic Games. Now, at the time, a lot of people like Ian Crane and others and the Open Minds community were blowing whistles that the BBC had run a program on this. There'd been precedents for this before, and we could see the pattern happening, and everybody was blowing the whistle that there was going to be some major catastrophe during the Olympic Games in 2012. Now, the man who actually blew the whistle on that was, and went to jail for it, was Michael Shrimpton. Now, his research on a very, very dark, very evil, secretive organization, which in today's language is a German secret intelligence service, but it's much deeper than that. They had actually, the scale of their involvement, because they've kept themselves so well hidden, and the number of governments all over the world. For instance, Stalin was a German intelligence operative. Lloyd George, Eisenhower, Edward Heath, the Wilson administration, Lord Louis Mountbatten. I mean, there were several coups d'etats in England. One of them was to get rid of Thatcher, but that was before everybody else wanted to get rid of Thatcher. But it was actually an ironic switch during the Falklands War that promoted Mrs. Thatcher to much higher levels. So what happened in our sphere of influence in the North was that they reinvented the IRA, and that was designed to shut down the consciousness awakening in the North. Now, the same thing started happening in the South, and that was reflected by the pirate radio situation at the time, which is when me and Chris met, and we were looking after all these UFOs and something going on in Ireland around about that time. And there was also, continuing on into the 1990s, a huge amount of UFOs seen off the southwest corner of Ireland. And that's why I had Eamon Ansborough, a brilliant astronomer, very brave, actually dealing with the search for extraterrestrial intelligence and communication with extraterrestrial intelligences using a faster-than-light transmission system, using scalar energetic technology, which is sort of like a non-local form of communication. So he was at the conference, and he nailed it on the head, and this is a globally exclusive, that he actually referred to High Brazil as being connected with ETs which come in and out of dimension. It's a physical island off the southwest corner of Ireland, and he connected it with data from the Bentwaters incident and nailed his colours to the mast as to, at the southwest corner of Ireland, at the extreme southwest corner of the continental shelf of Europe, as it tails off down into the deep Atlantic, there is some kind of dimensional portal there where the physical vestiges of Atlantis will appear, and that's in Irish history and on ancient Irish maps as High Brazil. So there's a whole pile of things going on at that conference of an incredible level and complexity, and that essentially, if you understand why we've woken up, we must have woken up from a sleep or a slumber, and you have to ask then who put us to sleep. And then that goes back to the ancient Druids and to the ancient higher awareness that we survived from thousands of years ago, which we're now waking up to at this very moment in time, as we would say. So what's happening at the moment is that this satanic ritual abuse, all that stuff involving children, and why this happens, is all being focused on our consciousness in mainstream that you've just been speaking about. So there's a huge awakening, and they're awakening from a major predator, which is preying on our very life force and existence itself. And that's manifest in front organizations such as the Tavistock Institute, which are things which are front organizations for this very deep, very ancient North European intelligence agency, which we now call the DVD. In today's version, we would call it the Secret German Intelligence Agency. So it gets deep, complicated, and oh my God.
So what do you think is going on with this QAnon? And apparently, I mean, Trump seems to be doing definitely something positive, you know, and there seems to be people dying, people being arrested, people going missing, people committing suicide.
And if you listen to Simon Parkes on one of his updates early December, he did flag that this information had been released and there was going to be something coming, and it happened on time, on target, on the 21st, which was something which coincided with the late Max Spears' birthday, because I did a very heavy-duty interview with Ava Brockenbracker, who mentioned quite a lot of things which I've been asked to pull off for the moment, which are events which are happening in a major interdimensional war, where the astral psychic warfare type of weapon systems that these elite creatures have been using, and I use the term creatures because they're not human, have been using on an interdimensional level. So there's a massive war happening, and a lot of those assets are up for sale at the moment. And that's what happened to Max. He was actually an asset which was put for sale. The NSA have been running super soldiers using enhanced ancient technology. So both in the physical domain and in a off-world or out-of-dimension domain, there is a huge lot of activity happening, which is the reason why I interviewed Michael Aquino, who was mentioning this very type of warfare. So we're dealing with a very complicated situation, and all of the data is in plain sight if we simply wake up to it and then understand it and use our own inner spirituality and higher frequencies to ascend to a much higher level of consciousness, which is why there's been so much effort put into the people in Ireland to hate each other, fight each other, have bipolar north-south divide. I mean, everywhere you got North Dublin, South Dublin, the north of the island, south of the island, even the Aran Islands and North Islanders, South Islanders. That's like intrinsically programmed into us. But we're waking up from that, and we can break it, and we can live past it and move on in a higher awareness. And then that is the enemy of these lower energetic life forms, which are desperate to bring us down and to literally suck our energy. And that's what we've now discovered. And the ancient Druids were aware of this. They had countermeasures for that. But essentially they're bringing in dark matter life forms which parasite off our energetic soul energies and the physical body energies, which age us more rapidly as we and damage our energetic physicality and the balance of our higher energetics. And when that balance is suitably disturbed, the complete collapse of that energy structure of a person is death, because it destroys the energetic aspects of the soul energetics as well. So you're gone. You don't come back. You're literally, and these creatures then harvest that. But we're now being given the technology to deal with that, but also in the higher levels of magic that the ancient Druids were aware of, they could also deal with that. So we're getting solutions to these very serious problems which we're facing.
And the energies that are coming in, because everybody's feeling them in some way. I mean, also one of the things that we mentioned there at the start of the show about things breaking and not working and all that kind of stuff. And we were told...
What type of things?
What? Well, just technology. And
well, that's the point. What type of technology? Because the computer technology that we're using is Trojan. And we're outsourcing just about every aspect of our society to this technology without knowing what's really happening. And I've said this before. Smart young people have got to realize that the physics and the engineering and the fundamental equations and fundamental teachings in engineering science and electrical science, which leads to electrical and computer and all sorts of types of technology which we use, has been messed with. So we don't get access to the proper energetics of the multiple dimensional aspects of this technology which we're dealing with. So at one level, you're dealing with something which works well, and you can watch your video games on it. But at the same time, this is energy sucking, is accessing our consciousness, is accessing the very aspects of our essence which can create and manifest. And that is extremely dangerous because it gets us to network on a network we don't know we're part of. And that is then controlled. I call it the 13th terminal on a 12-terminal network. So this other intelligence can then get us to create a matrix reality, which it has control of, but we think we have control of it, that we're not fully consciously aware of it in the first place.
It's
very, very dangerous consciousness energy management here.
Yeah, well, we're all feeling it. It's not just computers. I mean, between light bulbs going and showers breaking and cars breaking down. And Steve, do you want to talk about what you just mentioned there in the chat room?
Oh yeah, no, I just put up there during the week, Miles. I don't know where it came from or what the hell was going on, but I started the week off back to work Tuesday, and boy, I think possibly Thursday. I got up Thursday morning, and from the time I woke up and pretty much all through the day, all through Thursday, all through Friday, and a small part of Saturday, it was like walking around with a cloud. I just felt, as I said in the chat room, an immense sadness. It was like I was sad, like I was grieving for something, but I didn't know what.
I know. Yeah, we hadn't seen each other for a while.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Now I've got a picture in my wallet, so that's okay.
This is actually very important because one of the things, I mean, apart from the conference, one of the tail ends of the conference was a British soldier who was involved with the Falklands War, and we had him on here in Devizes. He was one of the military explosive expert. I need to speed up for time reasons. What they got out of the Falklands was out of Thule Island or Thule Island, Thule. And people who can study the Germans of what they were doing before the war will know about the Vril Society, Maria Ortish, and all these mediums who are gating in this energy and intelligence. So this aspect of the German secret societies, which is well known, talking about the Nazi bell, flying saucers, energy weapons, a whole array of physics which is suppressed, and what is called non-Einsteinian physics, because Einstein is a con. Anytime any science is basing any conclusions on Einstein, it's a fraud and it's a fake. So we've got to move past this. Again, I'm truncating a huge amount of information here. What the British got at the Falklands was a huge amount of a sentient, intelligent fluid, and they got it in 400 crates. Now, the witness that spoke downgraded that to more than 40, but they got 400 crates. He told me off camera that they got 400 crates, and these were 1 meter, 1.5 meters high, 2 meters by 2 meters, and they were a particular type of crate which interlocked like the teeth on a zip. And they got this stuff moved out of this island. Subsequently, when all that was removed, in order to prevent anybody else from getting access to that island, they blew the living hell out of it. They had the SBS, the Special Boat Service, SAS. You had one submarine, 3 Royal Navy ships, then a huge container ship which was brought in to remove all this material from Thule Island in the Falklands, and they all brought it back to the UK. Now, I've interviewed another guy called Alistair, and he... David Griffin's work on this, and Nexus Magazine did work on this. Another guy called Alec Newell, and there's a new book being published on this, which will affect the very essence of this sentient fluid. It's not an oil; it can be found in oil, but this is the fundamental essences of living, creative existence, which brings us into being. And we have a major war going on where our existence here is under attack from this energy. Now, in simple and crude terms, people can then say it's good and bad, Satan and all this sort of stuff. But that's too clumsy. But what's happening is I've just been given a briefing on a young man who, about 24, 25 years old, had a very troubled youth, and he has directly encountered this sentient fluid, and it kept blocking his path. He kept seeing it on the snow, and there it was on the ice, and it kept blocking his path. Then he interfaced with it. He did something positive. He interfaced his consciousness with this sentient fluid, and it gave him the right path. And since he did that, and since he positively interacted with this, his life's completely changed. What we've been taught in the movies and in the X-Files and Prometheus, this is black energy, all really bad, terror, fear, and all that. This is the fundamental essences of creative existence as part of the living life form that we are guests on, i.e. this wonderful planet. We are being briefed, we're being told about this satanic abuse, this killing, this terrible things, and we have to come up to speed and come up to the mark very quickly to deal with this. Otherwise, we're going to be part of the problem. So whilst we wake up and start congratulating ourselves about we're being exposed to all this wonderful new information, we've got to then take on board what this means and start getting together, teaching our younger children, enabling them. And when you got people in government, like you just mentioned, who are going to enforce and stop homeopathic medicine and force this 3D chemical medicine, which we know kills, it doesn't heal, and these people know that they're actually putting poisons and toxins into our medicine and our foods, so they are culpable for homicide on a mass scale. So when they go and bring legislation like this in, they are under universal law guilty of massive genocidal crime, and they're going to have to face up to that.
Okay.
As much as I want to say about that.
Okay, no problem. What about the big D? There seems to be an awful lot of talk in the public now regarding disclosure, whether it's soft disclosure, because obviously they still have to take it easy, but mainstream is talking about that. You know that inverted commas asteroid, this long cigar-shaped asteroid that came in and did a perihelion around the sun and then through itself went back out again from our solar system, and that's hit mainstream. A lot of mainstream people are talking about it, and
it was another sort of false flag again, like this stuff that's been released from the Pentagon about, well, we were researching UFOs are real, but we're not doing it anymore.
Well,
more bots.
Well, they're not doing it anymore because they know.
Richard Dolan has mentioned something on this. I haven't read it. The dark journalist who was also a guest at the conference has blown that out of the water. John Lear has said, those UFOs that were seen, that brief clip, you've got to always go by the brevity of the clip. When you've got such a short clip, it's obviously a press release. It's manufactured. Don't trust it. And that's what other researchers, as I say, the dark journalist, Daniel List, has had a look at that. John Lear has said pilots don't talk like that, the way that they communicate. So the whole voice track is fake. The whole thing's a fake. You cannot trust people who have been pedophiles and on a corporate, on a governmental, on a full scale, in their tens of thousands, who have been doing these kind of crimes against children in our mainstream, in our media, in our movies, in our all of these things. You can't trust the likes of those kinds of people to give you a clear, objective disclosure on anything.
But you are seeing, like us, you're seeing an awful lot of changes taking place and things being exposed and things coming out in the general public, and not down to, I mean, Trump is a big a fan of reporting fake news, and he just relies on Twitter. Now, I'm not saying Trump is going to be the saviour, but at the end of the day, he is doing the right thing in a number of ways.
Trump is exactly the right president at this time for the United States. He is exactly what they need. And good luck to him.
Yeah. No, I mean, he has come out and he's exposed a number of things, so my hat's off to him on that. There's other things that you have to kind of question, but obviously there might be something behind it that we're not aware of. Now, with the, as I say, with the big D disclosures, it seems to be on the public now. There's an awful lot of talk about it. And, you know, I know you're concerned about the way things are going, but I am seeing, since kind of 2016, now we're going into 2018, there's a lot more people awake than what there was even 2 years ago.
Yes. I mean, this is really getting very quick. But as I say, being awake and knowing about this means you can't sit on your hands and say, well, that's very interesting, and just watch the next Premiership football game or something. We've really got to start getting more proactive in getting together and analysing what these things actually mean to our responsibility as beings, as people here. Because once you're given information, there are responsibilities. Once you expose your awareness to information and to bring your awareness up to a higher level of consciousness, this new age kind of a thing, well, it's all wow and we just chill out, man. And no, you don't. You have to live up to your responsibilities, take responsible action, and Trump has done it. He's come out with this presidential decree on the 21st of December, and you know that's very serious stuff. We'll have to see how far that can be actioned positively and turning this negative, horrendous material into a positive, balanced form of energy, which doesn't create even multiply more fear and destruction and bloodletting.
Well, maybe we look back at the 21st of December as a pivotal moment where change took place, even though we're not maybe aware of the ramifications of that date and what went on, until maybe in a few years' time we'll look back and we'll find out about it. I mean, one of the things we mentioned at the start of the show was the death of Peter Sunderland. Now, this guy's worth, apparently, we've heard he's worth about 300 million. He's got ex-Goldman Sachs, ex-Attorney General. He's a Blinderberger. He's apparently and allegedly the elephant in the room on the night of the bailout in 2008 in Ireland. And he's 71. And for someone who's at that level with that money, 71 is quite young to die.
Well, it's there's... I'm going to mention Simon Parkes again. He was explaining a lot of people are taking subtly time with their children. They're subtly saying, "Oh, I've just got to take a holiday, take a wee sort of a walk." So it's interesting that was at no point nailing it down to specifics because there's just too many of them. So that is an indication that these individuals are either taking their own lives or they're being taken out.
Yeah, no, that's the feeling I'm getting from looking at the news media and talking to people, and just doing a wide kind of scan across the alternative news, is that these people are stepping down, spending time with their kids. They're being they disappeared or gone somewhere, or they're dying, committing suicide, and it all seems to be happening. And even in Washington, they turned around and said there's going to be 30 or 40 politicians over there that won't be coming back to their job after Christmas. I mean,
exactly. Now, it was suggested that the same thing would be happening more locally in the British cabinet, so we'll have to see how that pans out.
Well, again, we've heard that it's going to happen. See, this clean-up is going to happen in the States first, because that's where things come from. So once the States starts getting cleaned up and things are getting sorted, again, we can't give evidence to this, but there's apparently 10,000 special forces being sent around the world clearing up the car.
Well, I've just come back from Norway, and the same sort of discussion that we're having right now is happening over there. So it seems this is happening in countries all around the world. Now, again, we've been told by various commentators and observers over the last few years that the management, the planet's management is coming back, and they're not too happy with what the butler, so to speak, what the butler and the servants have been doing with the planet.
Yeah.
So essentially, we have to be very careful, and we do have an opportunity here. Some commentators are suggesting this is an opportunity for us to legally take the planet back. As tenants, we have allowed certain agreements by giving our permissions away so that the butler can abuse us and abuse the planet. Well, as tenants on this planet, we have got to clean up our act. We've got to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And a new landlord doesn't take control who's going to be just as bad, if not worse, than the landlord that's just been expelled.
Exactly.
So this is our opportunity for us to take control of, by refuting all previous contracts. I mean, that thing you said at the start about "sir," that's a classic manipulation of everyday language, which gives our permissions away. So if we redefine our language and break and refute all existing contracts, we can then take control and responsibility. I stress that, by taking back the planet for ourselves and dealing with that responsibility in a responsible and intelligent manner.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's part of the waking up, is people are beginning to read. Maybe it's an energetic thing, but people are beginning to say, they're seeing through this kind of system and the way it's set up. I mean, I just can't believe people cannot see politics for what it is, and the politicians. But then again, we have heard the difference between organics and synthetics. So
there's the whole AI, there's the whole movement of the 3D encasement of 3D technology, when we are multidimensional beings in reality, but we can be very manipulated into this artificial intelligence con, where I've been asking a certain university which specializes in AI, been putting certain things on the table to various individuals. And they don't want to know, because they know that they're calling us. They know that this is a 3D trap. It's like a matrix reality trap. I mean, this entrapment of our consciousness into a computer matrix. Yeah. I mean, the quantum computers are multidimensional devices, but our brain cells are multidimensional devices, which is why I'm focusing at the moment with basis on a much more academic, very heavy theory side of existence, and how our consciousness is being used to create the world we live in. So we are being influenced, and again, our consciousness is being influenced. So we create the prison. We dig our own graves on this.
Yeah, totally.
And that's why I mentioned certain companies in Belfast which deal with the computer accessing our consciousness, and then we hand over everything we've got to these computers.
And we have to be careful of our thoughts, because manifesting what we think, I mean, we always say that, be careful of what you ask for as well. Because I've heard a couple of stories of people asking for things and they weren't very specific. And they got what they wanted, but not exactly what they wanted, because they didn't specify exactly what they wanted.
Yes.
So we have to be careful. But I'm just watching the time, and we have a few questions that people have sent in there, Miles. So I'm going to pass you over to Steve. Steve's going to go through all the questions with you. Steve.
Yeah, okay. We do have some questions, a lot of interest on the chat room. Where we go for the first one, we will go to, Chris was in first, I suppose. So Chris G, he says, can you ask Miles about his concept of starting an academy for alternative information?
Well, I've been talking about this for, there's three things. Jesus, get on with it. The academy, we have to teach the children what they need to know, because everything they've been taught is basically a con job, as a rule. So they have to understand about the aspects of higher physics, about what computers really are, how they defend themselves, how they operate in the higher dimensional realms, and how that all functions, and how they defend themselves, how they work and live with the land. It's a whole range of aspects of everyday life, how agriculture is poisoning us and killing us, and I mean, all sorts of aspects of grain. All the grains have been modified, and the toxins they put on them all are, I mean, we're so heavily doped in so many levels, they need to be retaught. So I'm pushing for some kind of school where people can learn really how badly they've been conned, and learn a positive way of taking control themselves and moving on to other members of society, so they are properly informed and could do a positive contribution in real world terms to this wonderful world we live on. And it's also, I really would love to try and get into a printed newspaper thing called the Basis Times, where lecturers who've spoken at these conferences can then contribute articles and further update their research or work by printing articles, or online, or possibly even in print. But basically, that's what the Basis Times would be. And then the Basis Hack is if you've got a story and be working on it, and you've got the inside research on some kind of event or series of a particular subject, the Basis Hack would be like a magazine which would be focused on that particular subject, and that would be a way of getting your work and investigation out to a wider public. And that's what I would really like to try and get done this year, if that's possible.
And what do you think the chances are, Miles, of that actually happening? And the only reason I say that is because if you remember a couple of years ago, we had the lads from the Sovereign Independent. I think they were ahead of their time, but they actually kind of went through and they done a lot of research, and they got a printed paper and they had it out there, and they had people who were willing to sell it for them. And I think they had a couple of issues, and then it all just kind of went belly up.
Well, that's you will get infiltration. That's what one of the tragedies about the David Icke TV station, the People's Voice.
Yeah.
You are going to be infiltrated. You are going to be targeted, and so you've got to make sure that when you do take action, you do so when you know you are going to win. You don't take action on the basis of emotion, or you think you're going to. There's no point walking up to the big bad guy and hitting him, and he just swamps you out and sweeps you just away like at the bat of an eye.
Yeah.
So this has to be thought of, and there's no point going up to somebody and throwing stones at their window and say, "I hate you and you're a nasty, nasty person." What good is that? You've got to do it in an informed and an intelligent way, giving other people due respect, because who knows, you may be wrong on one particular aspect of some particular subject you're talking about. So you don't have to go there and scream at people. You do it in an informed and polite way. Manners is a very good thing if you can. The Sovereign Independent thing was in some respects like the New Age movement and a lot of the sort of so-called hippie movements of the 60s and things, were de facto intelligence operations from the word go, like the 9/11 Truth movement. That was definitely something which was taken over from word go. And then of course you've got the war. I mean, there's been a terrible tragedy happen in England where certain very kind and very highly spirited individuals have got mixed up with a certain couple of cases which they should never got anywhere near in the first place. And you have situations where one individual was given a court order to shut up, but they just decided to keep on screaming and yelling. Well, I mean, they could have got somebody else to do that, but because they did it, it's contempt of court, and they just get to just reel you in and then spew you out. It's ridiculous. A lot of individuals who simply go in there, pick a fight, which is why I'm not too keen on the straw man movement and you get people with a parking fine or something, they refuse to pay it because they've read something on the internet that if you say this or that in court, you can get away with it. Just pay your fine. That's it. And pay your parking fee. Don't pick a fight that you're going to lose. And that, in some respects, is what the sovereign independence movement was about. And then, I mean, you got to be aware of what you're doing. If you're going to set yourself up as an independent group, screaming at City Hall, they're just going to snap you out. So you've got to, take a more practical and pragmatic approach and an intelligent approach. And don't put hate and anger into your energy form when you do this sort of stuff, because it will defeat you.
I think you have to choose your fights. Be selective. Well, if you're going to take on a fight, be selective rather than fighting everybody, because it doesn't work. Okay, we'd go through. We have a few questions there. We're watching the time. Steve.
Well, I just want to backtrack a little bit there. If the Academy for Alternative Information, if that is to succeed, Miles, and we are to start educating the children, how do you see that happening? Will it be a printed paper that will be given to open-minded adults?
Well, it needs a huge amount of funding, and it needs a business plan, and it needs practical, physical buildings and real-world thinking and not messing about. You've got a whole lot of issues there in terms of requirements of education and all the stuff that comes with that. There are colleges and things, private schools and things, which are doing little things a bit like that, and you have to do that in a sensible way, and that needs real finance, real money, and not messing about, because a lot of these things just as such, these are ideas I'm floating. they're not going to happen unless it's going to happen right. Even when you are properly put together, a lot of like radio stations, TV stations, or magazines and things start up and fail for all sorts of reasons. Well-intentioned one way or another, but you've got to make sure that this is all properly put together. And that means you've got to do things in a practical, sensible way and not just have a pipe dream.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, I wasn't sure, like, if it was actually going to be bricks and mortar where people could actually go, but from what you're saying, it is, like, I mean, it's going to be bricks and mortar, and obviously instead of going to mainstream school, people or children will go here.
If you want to get a job, you've got to go through the mainstream school, you've got to get your qualification, you've got to you jump through the hoops and do that. It's going to have to be individuals who can then take steps further and then realize you've got to grow up in the real world. There's no point saying, "Oh, I'm going to reject this and not learn anything and then not get a job." What use is that? You've got to feed your kids. You've got to do the right thing. Yeah. So it's got to be done on a sensible, practical level.
Okay, right. Okay, moving on to MI5 or MI6. One of the people on People's Internet Radio wants to know: was Miles ever recruited by or have worked for MI5 or 6 in the past?
I obviously am part of a program because I've been involved with this stupid bases project since about the age of 5. Nobody pays my bills. I'm lucky to have any donations, so I do not get a paycheck from any government or a check from anybody. And both those organizations are compromised by German intelligence. As if you go and read Michael Shrimpton's book, it's a good read. No, I have not been.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm called Miles because that is Latin for soldier. I got mixed up with this James Casbolt stuff, the Grid Keeper and all this, doing the basis project like a lunatic, when I should have just go and get myself a real job. But, if anybody wants to pay the bills, they're more than welcome.
Okay, we'll send you over some money. So, what about Antarctica? Moon Girl also wants to know, what does Miles know about Antarctica?
Well, we know that the Germans got there. We know that they took over Queen Maud Land. We know that Admiral Byrd went down there and got his ass kicked. The island that I talked about, Thule Island, was a German submarine base in World War II, and before that, it was used to assist in the supply of submarines in the southern seas. So you've got a Thule Island Thule base up in Greenland. You've got a Thule base down in as close to the Antarctic as you can get without being in the Antarctic, and that's what the Falklands War is all about. So there are. I mean, I published some photographs where a scientist from Queen's University Belfast, part of the British Antarctic Survey, showed me at school these colour slides, and we published it. They've got it on Nexus magazine when there's a feature on Antarctica, and this was a black energy weapon fired from a disturbance in the cloud, which then hit the ice and exploded on the horizon. When he went back to Antarctica, he met his death within 24 hours. It's abundantly clear that there are systems and things going on down there of an exceptional nature. I wouldn't believe a single thing you're seeing on the media or the other media, the alternate media, about all sorts of things going on down there. It's palpable nonsense, because it must be, because if you've heard it, it's not going to be the truth. Rumour has it they've run out of parking spaces for submarines down there. There's clearly something happening. I've done fast blasts on an Italian-French base that was destroyed and not replaced, the Concordia base, a while back. Definitely something big going on down there. Study the energetics very carefully. There's some kind of energy changing there where the Antarctic ice sheet is shifting, not going away, but moving away. When the Round the World, the Monty Python guy went down there, went from pole to pole, if you look at the body language, you've got to be, when you look at these documentaries, the BBC, they're saying one thing, but they're also blowing whistles in plain sight. The way that they were treated, Michael Palin was treated all those years ago when he went down to the South Pole, should tell you, if you look at the body language in that clip where he was in the canteen at the South Pole base, that should tell you in loud and clear terms there is a major problem there. And I only got some further information about the giant spiders in the Carlisle, in the Lake District. 3 feet wide. Another individual suggested that the cities down there were being built by the tall whites. There's a lot of activity happening there, so keep a look at.
How come we've never seen? I've heard you talking about these before, the giant spiders, and we've
the diamond spiders.
Yeah, is there any photos or evidence to prove that?
You won't get photos of something which doesn't emit photons. Dark energy things don't emit photons, so you don't get it. You'll get a shadow, or you'll get a removal of photons. The type of energetic beings which they accidentally exposed in the deep underground mines and bases in Carlisle, there's been a feature on this in the Carlisle regional newspaper a couple of weeks ago. They're looking for major UFO activity up there. That is one of the places which took a big deep underground base. Dunn was taken out about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe more than that. When the hell? I left Sky 7 years ago, so it was before that. And I appeared on Edge TV talking about it. There were a number of explosions. Because Cumbria is very high, there was the actual explosion was deeper because it's the same strata, deep underground, where a lot of bases were taken out. And we discovered that virtually everybody in the Cumbrian area is under some kind of group thought control device that we triggered. My friend and I triggered because we looked like something which triggered their screen memories. And that indicated you've got nuclear power stations there, you've got deep underground bases there, you've got UFO researchers there having their computers taken. So that is directly opposite the border area at the Mourne Mountains and Carniford Loch. Tony Dodd mentioned a big ET base accessing in Carlingford Loch. That's where Radio Caroline came from. Look at the impact that had. There was also a major a US spy plane. It wasn't a U-2, but it was something like that, which ditched in a lake in one of the mountains in the Mourne Mountain range at the border, where there's also been cattle mutilations there. So there's a lot of stuff and indicators happening in that region, which indicates a lot of off-world or other dimensional terrestrial activity. Remember, High Brazil reappears every so often. It's physically here, and then it drifts back out of our reality into something else. So we've got a different set of realities here, and that's all over Ireland. It's all in the ancient symbols of Ireland, and that's part of the awakening that people would need to be trained on, and that is why Eamon Ansber's lecture at the conference was so important, because he was telling you about the ET bases and a connection with the ancient Atlantean past, which is just off the coast of what we are right on a doorstep here of another world.
Well, apparently it's the Earth 2, or this second Earth. I mean, Dolores Cannon talked about it, and we've heard about this split with the energies. So that could be a dimensional shift that's taken place.
That's the whole point of that's the whole point of the interdimensional aspects of the Star of David. You've got two 3D realities interfacing within the same sphere. And they move around, they move in and out of phase slightly.
Yeah.
And this is what Valery Uvarov mentions about the Earth defense system in Siberia, where it's mostly in our dimension. That means there's another dimension which is also in.
Yeah.
So we've got to understand the whole aspect of multidimensional existence, how the Sasquatch are our ancient ancestors, our ancient forefathers, the Sasquatch and the abominable snowman, these big, 2.4 meter tall hominids, they're able to move between dimensions. That's the whole aspect of the standing stones. The mathematics behind standing stones, megaliths, is interdimensional.
Yeah, I've heard and read about the Bigfoot and Sasquatch, that they can basically control your brainwaves, and you could walk past them and not see them because they could look like a tree.
And I met a girl who had an experience just like that. We're too dangerous, we're too volatile. Their 3D, their DNA hasn't been messed around with like ours. We've got an atrophied third strand, which has been withered. That's why we have got to locate the predator within us, within our existence, and take it out. We've got to wipe it out. Otherwise, we will be hamstrung at every move. We have got a predatory, dangerous, pathological, lethal predator which eats our children. We know this. It kills us. It farms us. We've got to figure that out and attack. And when you do go on the attack, you are only going to do so when you know you will win.
Yeah.
And it's with us. It's monitoring us. It's with us every move. So we have got this predator. We've got to deal with it.
Okay. We have another question there, Steve, if you want to.
Yes, we do. Moon Girl also wants to know, what's your thoughts, Miles, on chemtrails?
Well, again, nobody's been able to go up to the back of an aeroplane and actually get an actual sample. You can't sort of see that aeroplane nip out there, say, hold on a minute, lads, I'll just nip up, get a little sample of what's coming out of the back of that aeroplane and analyse it.
Actually, that's what Michael J. Murphy did. He was on our show. He took it, he hired a plane and went up and did that.
Well, if he did that, that's the first time I've heard of it. Good luck.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, he's done that.
As a result of that.
Because
that's the way to get actual facts.
Yeah.
So good. Take my hat off to him.
Well, he hired a plane, and they obviously seen the chemtrails, hired the plane, went straight up and put the hand out and took a sample, whatever, and brought it back down. Now, we don't know what the results are, but Michael J. Murphy, if people want to Google him or go on YouTube, he might have the results of that.
Again, putting all this stuff on YouTube is vanity. You've got to stop doing this, people. You put something on YouTube, you put something on the internet, you put anything on an electronic medium. I mean, one of the aspects of this German intelligence agency, one of the basis people, one of the interviews she's done her own research in all this. So you've got Michael Shrimpton and stuff. They're both talking the same stuff here. Yet, when the question was verbalized to me that there's certain information they wanted about a particular laboratory in a particular place, I was forbidden to even say that. It was not allowed to be used on any electrical communication device. You were not allowed to write it down or put it in a mail. It had to be a one-on-one individual conversation, and only that itself can be bugged, just from a remote view, energetic point of view. So we have got used to putting everything on YouTube, everything on Facebook. I mean, this is when we were running the Pirates. The Department of Communications sponsored or I don't know whether they sponsored it, but they got somebody to put a blog up. So every station that went on the air boasted about what antennas they've got, what power they're using, where the location is and everything else. And the Department of Communications didn't have to do a damn thing. All they need to do is walk into the office and everybody would just tell them. So this idea of putting these things on YouTube, you've got to publish it scientifically, print it down, and hand it out to individual people on a computer or something which is not online. And even the esoteric essences of these devices we're using, you've got to type it out on a mechanical analog typewriter if you want to keep the stuff.
Well, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, the internet has been used and people have learned so much from the internet. So that's the double-edged sword.
We have a modern generation that if they don't see it online and can't get it on their iPhone, it doesn't exist. Not everything on this planet is scanned in on the bloody internet. You've got to find it in a book, or you go actually on. That's one of the aspects of any academy. You actually physically do the work, the physicality of it, and open the ancient texts or the book and read that and get that information from that. Once you scan it in, the AI knows about it. That is something which Andrew Power was so annoyed about when his book, Ireland, Land of the Pharaohs, was actually scanned in and somebody put it on a PDF and put it on the internet. Then it became part of Matrix. That's the one thing he didn't want, which is why he didn't want more than 1,000 of those books published. It was just written in the book. And would Matrix consciousness.
And would it not be a good idea would Andrew, I think he's passed away now, would he not allow, or the people who have the rights to that, allow for publishing of the book?
It's too late. It's up there.
Yeah. No, Google I know.
It.
Yeah.
Once you get it, Google will steal it, and then it's online everywhere.
Yeah. Okay.
And then they can alter the text.
Okay. So
you read these damn Kindles and everything else.
Just going back to the chemtrails, tell us your take on them.
Well, if you wanted to surreptitiously do something, you would do it using those aircraft. There was a great, the guy called Jose Escamalion published a very good, he shot the stuff himself way back in about 93. He got loads of chemtrail stuff and UFOs and stuff where you had a circular aircraft doing the spraying. It wasn't even an aeroplane. So there are aspects that some have said that if we hadn't had the chemtrails, we would have hit Ice Age by now, because the whole global warming thing is a complete con.
Yeah.
We've managed to push ourselves, I think, another 50 or 60 years of a relatively habitable climate before it starts getting really cold again. But we simply don't have enough information on that. There's some people come up with some very good stuff about it. Only the good old timers can say, oh, I remember in my days you got a lovely blue sky and that was all that. To the modern kids who are growing up now, they don't see that. They've never seen that. They've never seen anything else except operate the damn iPhones or their smartphone.
Yeah. Now, I'd seen articles regarding we're going into a mini ice age for 17 years. And this is what they're talking about. And we've had people on, weather experts on the show, who confirm that. And it's not all about, you know,
it's
the
in
planet
the energetics of the sun. The sun's energy frequency spectrum has changed. We are sensitive to such a narrow amount of that light that in terms of our lifestyle, if there's a relative shift of the energies, like it's gone bluer, there's more shift I think there's more light in the blue spectrum, only because there's less energy in the higher microwave spectrum. Now, I could be completely wrong on that. So we've got to, we're again, because we only look at infrared is what we feel warmth. We respond to such a narrow band of frequencies. So these other frequencies which are around, we've got to monitor that. But if you look at the massive scale of interaction of digital transmission signals and frequencies and what they put signals on what frequency and what harmonic of those frequencies, this often isn't the main carrier, which is the problem. It's the subtle other signals which deliberately mimic certain signals in nature, which they then shift and control that. There's a whole raft of this. This is very, very smart, very complicated with what's going on. And that's why the use of the FM band, which was a mind window frequency band for FM radio, having that switched off and then having a digital sweeping frequency on that is very dangerous in my regard.
Okay.
Opinion.
We have another question for you here, Steve. Sorry.
Ooh, all the noise.
That's somebody trying to call in there.
Yeah, that's it. Just before I go to the next question, Miles, that's very interesting. I did hear that recently, that in some countries around the world, they've already done it. They've already switched off.
In Norway, they've switched off the band 2 FM, but they're keeping it still running for a couple of small local stations.
Yeah. So DAB, I think DAB is definitely taken over. You can get the DAB in the car radio.
DAB is an absolute pile of rubbish. DAB. I mean, it's using such an old codec, in such an inefficient way. It's awful sound. It really is.
Okay, I haven't heard it myself, so
yeah, it's mono. Most of it's mono, and that's why the speakers and most of the DAB radios are these tiny little tin can, horrible little radios. It's appalling stuff.
Okay.
AM would be better.
Yeah.
Just keep it on AM.
Okay.
Right.
Do you want to?
Okay, then we'll move on to this one. Cryptocurrencies, question there. What's Miles' view on cryptocurrencies?
Well, I've invested in one coin, bitten the bullet, so to speak. Again, this, as we live in a virtual world, I mean, all money's virtual now anyway, virtually virtual. But what they're doing is everybody says, or certain people will say, oh, they're hitting the banks and these horrible bankers and stuff like that. These people put this stuff in and they're going to have control of it. So it's going to be like again, Jerry Battles, who appeared at the conference, he's the abductee. When he was told, that's a unique abductee who didn't lose his cool when he was abducted, kept himself grounded, and the ETs, who looked remarkably like manted beings of some kind, which actually could be some other dimensional beings in this world as opposed to the ET thing, but that's another issue. Because he kept his cool, they showed him lots of things around in his spacecraft and so forth and whatever. But one of the things they said, if you're going to come back, Jerry or Terry, don't bring any money with you. And that's because it's energetically toxic. It's an energetic, toxic energy field. But since that's the way we live, you've got to just deal with it. We can't live without it. Sure, we could if we invented some other means of barter and exchange. But from a practical living point of view, you just have to go with the flow.
Well, it's about energy. We talk about time banking and promote time banking, and that's about energy. There's no physical cash or money. It's about your energy.
Yes, the whole thing is an energy exchange.
Yeah.
You work, you put your energy into work, you get paid this thing, which is an energy exchange. You go and take that, you buy food, you then take the food and you put it in your body and you have exchanged that energy. But meanwhile, it's gone through this process of money.
Yeah.
So it's all about energy exchange.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that if we take money out and just used our energy and exchanged, we'd have the time banking idea is that you use say an hour of your time, you get one credit and you can trade that credit in for food for somebody else who produces food, and that's how you do it. And money doesn't have to exchange hands.
Money
it's bartering.
Is a token. The difference is it's got the head of state's head on it.
Yeah.
There's other things they do to that energy, and the way the banks have been using it, virtual, creating, printing money and all that sort of stuff. They've been caught at it, but again, from a practical, I'm cautious to sort of condemn things when not giving a practical way of living out of it. I mean, that thing that you're talking about is a practical way of doing it, but I mean, how are you going to do that by buying a car or putting petrol in it or charging electricity into these extremely toxic heavy metal batteries that they put in these cars, which are really toxic and dangerous types of batteries.
Well, I'm sure we'll work it out in the end. I know we're just keeping an eye on the time there, Miles. Tell us what your plans are. So we're going to get the communication channels off there in a minute, but tell us what the plans are for yourself on the Basis project now, coming in the next couple of years. Tell us what you're planning to do.
Well, I'm pushing for academics. I mean, that's what I really wanted to do in 2016. I had a lot of doctors, I had people there who were pushing at an academic level as opposed to a waffle and an opinion and emotion level. That's why I had people like Valery Uvarov and there was the doctor of psychiatry, psychologist was at the conference as well. So I want to push for an academic thing. So what I'm going to be doing now is trying to get a series of lectures to camera where people basically deliver their presentation as in a TV presentation instead of a lecture presentation. If there are ground crews, I mean, I've had interest from the north of England because they used to have the Extra Politics conference up there in the north of England, and that basically ran its course because these things cost a lot of money. If you're self-financing it, it bleeds you dry. And it needs properly funded, all this sort of stuff. You're going to bring lots of people in from international. There's air tickets to be paid for and hotels and all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to be pushing for doing a series of lecture presentations, and I've started with a guy called Mike Emery, who has been publishing a lot of his work at an academic website. I had a nice discussion with him once about scalar energetics, and he worked with Tom Bearden, and they used the Los Angeles sewer system as a grid for longitudinal transmission of scalar energetics, which was designed to shut down a scalar energy attack from the Russians. So that kind of stuff most people aren't taught about in any respect at school. So that's one of the things I'd like to educate people by having a series of lectures online. We've got Maria Wheatley, who's promising to do her presentation, and I want to do the detail of Michael Shrimpton's book. I mean, each chapter on his book, I don't agree with everything he says, but he's saying a hell of a lot you've got to pay attention about. The details are all there in his references, and I want to try and put that on as a series, and hopefully generates sufficient funds to do a proper documentary on that, because the BBC's thrown that out in terms of doing any kind of a credible documentary on his work on the secret German intelligence. I mean, saying that Lloyd George was a German spy and Attlee was a German spy and Lord Mountbatten was a German spy, which is why they had to get the IRA to blow him up. But then the IRA was run by the Germans in the first place, so the Germans got rid of one of their own people using their own assets.
Well, no.
I mean, the level of this gets so deep and intertwined. It's just it's incredible. Well,
it makes a change. It's normally the Russians. Now it's all the Germans.
The Russians are the good guys on this. The Russians were run. Stalin was a German asset. Lenin was a German intelligence asset. These people put Hitler in power. Then he decided to blow him up. The explosion to blow Hitler up was actually a German secret intelligence operation to get rid of the wrong man they put in the first place.
Well, I'll tell you,
this gets really complicated.
That's another show. We've reached that time, unfortunately. Yeah. But that's definitely another show. But it'd be interesting to see anyway. And we know the basis stuff is online, and we're going to pass you over to Steve.
We are hoping to have another conference in Dublin, but we haven't made a decision on that, and maybe one in the north of England and Leeds somewhere.
Brilliant. Okay, well, listen, thanks a lot for coming on and sharing the information. I'm going to pass you over to Steve.
Thank you, guys. You're doing a heck of a good job.
We're doing our best. We're going to pass you over to Steve. Steve's going to get all your contact info there. Steve.
Right, Miles, yeah, great information. We need to do it again sometime. We do have speaking of YouTube, we do have the link here to the YouTube channel, which I'm going to pop up. But for anyone else who wants to find out more about what you talk about, where can they get the information?
Well, it's thebasisproject.org. And I do have the Basis Project. I'm sort of beginning to upload stuff onto that as a dedicated The Basis Project site. YouTube had just demonetized it, which is a huge problem because YouTube are demonetizing like blazes. Just about everything I upload is demonetized these days. But it's thebasisproject.org, and it's Miles at thebasisproject.org. And if you want to donate, I'm on Steemit. You can support the Basis on Steemit, and I'm hoping to open up some stuff on DTube, which is a new version of YouTube which helps independent creators. And that's a whole new field which I'm exploring. I've got a pretty switched on web guy who's been able to get me onto Steemit and Patreon. You can help, people can help their cause that they prefer to support by going onto Patreon or Patreon. And you can actually dedicate a little bit of money every month, which doesn't hurt you too much, so you can actually support the kind of independent creators which are now being so heavily penalized and hit on YouTube. YouTube's been around for a long time. We've had a great time with YouTube, but I think the writing's on the wall at YouTube's seen its better days.
Yeah, I think it's time to move on from YouTube. I have to agree with you on that one. All right, Miles, thanks a lot for coming on the show. Just stay with us there for a minute. We're just going to go off to a musical break, and we'll be back after this.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com and peoplesinternetradio.com.
Good information there from Miles Johnston. We do have the links, and over the next couple of minutes, I will get them up there on the chat room. So look forward to doing that.
Brilliant stuff. Right, our second guest is a chap called Tom Ryan. Tom has never been on OYM before, so this is the first time we've had Tom on the show. And before we bring Tom in, Steve's going to give us a quick read of his bio.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, Tom Ryan is an internationally renowned Master Hypnotherapist, lecturer and trainer. Based on 40,000 hours of clinical experience over more than 30 years, Tom's dynamic hypnotherapy incorporates many disciplines, all distilled into a unique and dynamic new approach. Experience for yourself the fastest therapy in the world with Tom's powerful process. You can stop smoking, eliminate phobias, panic attacks, anxiety, asthma, sleeping problems and much more permanently, all in just one 1-hour session. Tom proves that change is instant and permanent. Experience Tom's accelerated teaching methods and learn how to replace stress and negative programming such as low self-esteem with a dynamic, positive, life-enhancing way of thinking and living to bring out the magic of your mind and live your full potential. I like the sound of that.
Brilliant stuff. Good evening, Tom. How are you doing?
Good evening, and it's delightful to talk to you, and thank you for having me on.
Great, thanks for coming on. Now, obviously, you're going to be on the one of the speakers at the Open Mind conference down in Waterford, like ourselves. We're going to be on down there. Do you want to go give us a bit more detail of what you do and what you cover, and then we'll talk about what you're going to be talking about at the conference?
Well, my everyday, if you like, breadwinning experience is dealing with people with smoking problems, fears, phobias, anxieties, panic attacks, sleeping problems, all this kind of thing. And to get rid of most of those problems in one session. Very few of them require more than that, because I work with the mind. The mind has a whole series of programs, the very same as a computer. You can change programs, you can remove programs, you can replace programs, and you can create new programs, and that's my business.
Fantastic. Now, I seen a program with Paul McKenna in it, and he was charging fantastic money to be treated if you wanted to go. And these people were going in, and they had the likes of phobias. And phobias, as far as I'm concerned, are learned behaviours because we're not born with them. And what he did was he reprogrammed their mind by getting them to rewind an instant that they had that frightened them to give them the phobia in the first place. Do you have your own process with deprogramming?
Although I worked with and I trained with Paul at one stage, my process is completely different. I get people into a state of mind where I can talk directly to the subconscious mind, and there are specific programs in there. And let's assume a person has a phobia, for example. That's a specific program. Mm-hmm. And that program can be removed the very same as a program can be removed from a computer. It's quick, it's efficient, it's effective, and it's permanent. So there's no rerunning or anything like that. It's simply going in, taking out the program, and sometimes replacing it with a better program, because you don't create a void. You always replace it with something better.
Okay, so what would you, if somebody went in and they had, say, a phobia of spiders, what way would you deal with that?
Well, first of all, you take them into a trance. You re-empower all their standard programs. You see, a human being, like a computer, has many, many, many programs. And those programs work in harmony together. Mm. However, if there's what I call a delinquent program or a miasmic program, which is like a virus in a computer, that needs to be removed. And I empower and entrain the other programs to work with me to remove the inappropriate program.
Right, okay.
And we simply remove it very quickly and efficiently and effective.
Okay. And you just said there, Steve, you want to jump in?
Asthma, though, Tom. Asthma, you can help with asthma?
Yeah, I'm also a trained Boteko practitioner. Boteko was a Russian doctor who developed a breathing program to completely eliminate asthma.
Wow.
All kinds of asthma.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. So your bread and butter is what you do there, treating people. But obviously, you're on our show. We are the alternative media, or the new media, as one Sinn Féin councillor said to us.
I like the new media because the old media is obsolete.
Yeah, definitely. So you're obviously doing other things outside your day-to-day job. So what are you involved in from an alternative point of view?
Well, from an alternative point of view, I'm involved in training other hypnotherapists to do as I do, because I developed these programs over 30 years myself. Outside of that, I would describe myself as an unrepentant Republican. And outside of that, I work with people to help them to develop their true potential. I talk to people, help the people, support people, because when a person comes into me, I don't look at the problem they're presenting me with. I look at the infinite human potential that is there beyond the problem, and that's what I want to bring out. It's easy to remove the problem, but the next thing to do is to bring out the best in every person.
Okay, so when you're doing hypnotherapy, we had a lady called Alba Weinman on, and she does regressional hypnotherapy, and she removes a lot of issues when it comes to energy and things that happened in previous lives. Is that touch on what you do? Have you done any of that at all?
Yeah, I've done quite a lot of past life regressions, but I do it primarily for people's curiosity, for their entertainment, and to get rid of the fear of death, because nobody dies. They simply shed the body and move on, and maybe they will pick up another body later on.
So when you're speaking to, are you speaking to a higher self, a spirit guide, or who are you speaking to getting this information from them?
I speak to the higher self. Never, ever, ever do I speak to spirit guides. I don't trust them.
Right, okay, that's interesting. Okay. So you're speaking to the higher self from that person, and that higher self can tell you what's exactly going on with their body or something that happened in a past life.
Absolutely. The higher self is infinitely capable of everything and knows everything. I call it the Christ itself sometimes, because it can do virtually anything. The higher self is infinite in its potential. And it lives outside of time. And because it lives outside of time, once you go in there, you can go back into any of their past lives if you want to do. But when a person has a problem in this life, I don't care where it came from a past life or from something that happened in their childhood or something that happened yesterday. The problem exists now, and I get rid of it in the now.
Okay. I actually seen Paul McKenna in Wembley Conference Centre when I lived in London, and the two people that he didn't want to come up on stage were people who suffered from epilepsy and people who suffered from stress. So is there any guidelines that you kind of stick to say, well, if you suffer from certain things, we can't treat you?
No, you can treat everything. And I think the reason Paul can treat everything, he's a superb hypnotherapist. He wouldn't have had the time to work with people with those kind of problems in the confined time and space of Wembley Stadium. However, if he was working on his own, he would have had no problem with working with those people. I've treated many people with, say, epilepsy, for example. One young lady, 19 years of age, was getting about 10, 20 fits in a day, falling over. She was all battered and bruised. I felt like at one stage telling her to wear a helmet. She was banging her head so many times. But we got rid of that phobia in one session. Now, remember, I had done 7 sessions prior to that didn't work. But I came up with a process in the 8th session that worked infinitely well, and she had no more epileptic fits. Well, simply by getting her to bypass the part of the brain where the short-circuiting was taking place, and to work around that, because the brain is holographic. It means any one part of the brain can fulfill all the primary functions of the entire brain. So if there's a part of the brain malfunctioning, you simply bypass it and you get other parts to fulfill that role.
Right, okay, well that's interesting. I'd like to talk to you more about that, but we wouldn't have the time to get into that. So we will do another full interview. Have you come across people where they, from an ESP level, or they have some kind of ability, or you can enhance ability, or, you know, or help them with an ability that they might have?
Everybody has ESP ability. The only thing is what passes for education. The indoctrination we get in school blocks it or causes us to block it ourselves. You see, the mind is infinite. If you look out into the universe as far as the farthest off distant star, and if you can perceive or see that star, your mind is traveling to that part and connecting with that star. So all our minds are contained in the same space. Therefore, we can interact with each other in that space, and we can pick up thoughts, feelings, emotions, and experiences from people in those places. You could call that telepathy, if you like. When you go out there and into the place of the unconsciousness or the higher self, you're into a timeless zone. So you can go back through the past, or you can go into the future. So, like I said, the mind is infinite. The mind is not the brain. The brain is a piece of hardware inside the head that processes the information coming from the mind and sends information to the mind.
Okay. And what kind of information have you come across from a higher self? Was there any? Because I often, when we talk about regressional therapy, I always kind of refer to the book by Phil Newton, Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls, where he taps into the superconscious, the life between our lives, the past life and the current life, and he taps into that and he finds out information that we wouldn't possibly know. So is that something that you've ever come across, information that you've kind of said, oh, that's interesting about human beings or this person that they didn't know or we didn't know about it?
Absolutely, yeah. I know the book you're talking about. I've read that book, actually. It's very important when you're doing past life regression to go between lives and look at the lessons from that life that you've just gone through and ask it what are its messages for the present life. So you're learning about the past and you're also relating it to the present.
Okay.
And you're helping the person then to move into the future.
And do you record the sessions so that people can play it back and have a listen?
Only past life regression sessions do I record. I don't record the other ones because it's nice for them to have a recording of themselves in their past lives.
Yeah, exactly, because obviously people need to find out, who they were. Now, there's a lot of people saying they're Cleopatra or Hitler or, whatever. Have you found that that's the case, that they all come back and say they're some kind of famous historical character from history?
No, that's ego tripping. Plain and simple ego tripping. I've never had anybody that was any one of those famous people. I've had people that were important people that we would have never heard of. I've had people that were unimportant people but were very important to humanity in their lives that nobody would have ever heard of. But I haven't come across any Cleopatras. And if a person is doing some kind of bogus regression, and there's a lot of that around, they'll find a lot of Cleopatras and Mark Antonys and Julius Caesars and God knows who else,
But how would they, if they're being regressed, how would they control that to be able to come back and say, in my past life, I was Cleopatra? Are they controlling it in some way on a subconscious level?
No, they're not. They're not hypnotized at all. The whole thing is a sham.
Oh, okay. Okay, so they're pretending to be under, basically.
Yeah, and they're probably working with somebody who's not qualified to work with them in the first place.
All right. Are there signs that you look for to actually tell that a person's under?
Well, they're never under. What they're doing is they're expanding their mind to incorporate the subconscious and the unconscious and the higher consciousness and universal consciousness, if you want to. So you're going deeper and deeper, and you're going out and out. If you want to, you go out and you incorporate the whole universe, and you can travel to parallel universes.
Right, okay, that's interesting. Tom, we have a number of questions that have come in, and we do have a limited time. So I'll tell you what we'll do. Can you quickly tell us what your talk is going to be about on the conference in Waterford in March 2nd, 3rd and 4th down in the Dooley's Hotel? And then we'll try and get a few questions over to you in the time that we have. So if you can tell us what you're going to be talking about.
Okay, I'll try and keep it as short as possible. First of all, I'll deal with the brain. The brain is merely an instrument that communicates to and from the mind. Then I want to explain to people what the mind is and how to reach the mind. The mind is infinite consciousness. And we have a little piece of that which we regard as ourselves, which we control and can use and learn from. And that's our role here in this world. And to explain to people how to communicate with their mind, rather than being in the brain and being just in the ego all the time, because they're not really part of the mind. They're just operational processes of the brain. To get beyond that, people need to go into either self-hypnosis or a good meditation. And then they can expand their mind way out and beyond anything they can conceive as their limited role in this world. Then they will discover that they are unlimited and they have infinite potential, and all the fears and phobias, anxieties, panic attacks, and everything that's fear-based will start disappearing and eliminating itself out of their lives. So we're not trained in any of this in school or in college or in any of the training programs in the mundane world we live in. We're operating in what we call a beta brainwave pattern, which is a state of permanent anxiety, basically. It's a very old state that was fine when we were being chased around by saber-toothed tigers, but it's not appropriate in this day and age, because you can't, when you have a problem in the office, you can't run away from it the same as you can from a saber-toothed tiger. So you have to be able to deal with it in another way, and then you have to be able to communicate with your mind to empower you, to strengthen you, and to enable you to go beyond the problem, not to cope with the problem. Coping with the problem is being stuck with the problem. It's simply internalizing an external experience of a problem, which will probably damage a person's health. And if you do meditation or self-hypnosis, you will improve the quality of your life, the quality of your health, and your longevity. And you will discover all kinds of potential and all kinds of talents and abilities within. And that's what I'll be talking about in the conference, teaching people or telling people how to discover their true talents and abilities by getting to know their mind. Because I think what Shakespeare said, know thyself. And unless we know our mind and can communicate it, we don't know ourselves.
Okay, well, no, I totally agree. And meditation comes up on a regular basis as something that we all need to get back into and do on a regular basis because of the frequency that meditation works on.
Yes.
So it's very, very important that we do that. Well, that sounds like it's going to be very interesting talk down there. Now, we're going to quick fire these questions. We only have a few minutes, but if you can give us a one-line answer, I know it's very difficult when you're dealing with this subject matter, but if you can give us a one-line answer, we can get as many questions as we can over to you there. So, Steve, if you want to shoot them over there to Tom.
Right, I'll take a very deep breath. Just to start off by saying, I have actually put a link, Tom, to your website up on both of the chat rooms that we monitor for the questions. So, I mean, so people, if you do have a question, you can just pop on Tom's website. But these couple of questions came in before I actually pull up the link. So I'll just throw them at you. John was saying, do you ever be tempted to fix other things that you may see that people need help with while you have them under? I mean, obviously, if you're fixing one issue, if you see another, would you fix that as well?
Not unless it's directly related to the one I'm dealing with, because I don't have permission to do with that. Afterwards, then I can talk to them about that and ask would they like to go back in again, and we'll deal with whatever that is. Some people want to do that, some people don't. But that's their choice, and you don't operate outside their choice.
Yeah, okay. I suppose the same as a doctor. If he's going in to remove something, he doesn't do anything else. Well, that's why some Irish doctors do. Yeah. Duncan is wondering, what about malfunctioning thyroid? Can you do anything with that? And he also wonders, is there anything that can be done for emphysema?
With a malfunctioning thyroid, it's very much a physical condition. You could help it somewhat with hypnosis, but I would always refer them to somebody who could deal with the physical on that. Not necessarily a medical doctor, maybe an alternative practitioner, because I prefer the alternative, because they'll just stuff them with drugs. But I probably would refer them to a doctor under certain circumstances. But with a physical thing like that, that's what I would deal with. With emphysema, emphysema can be dealt with very, very well with the Botteco process. One woman came to me one day. She was 74 years of age. She wanted to quit smoking. Why do you want to quit smoking? Well, she was dragging this oxygen thing in a trolley behind her with these two tubes going up her nostrils. And I thought, you light up one more cigarette, missus, and you're going to blow yourself up with that pure oxygen. But we taught her the Botteco breathing method, and within a few days she was running around without any aids whatsoever. So depending on how bad the emphysema is, you can do a lot to alleviate it and almost alleviate the symptoms completely in certain circumstances.
Well, that's great. That's definitely good to know. Because I think we all know, I mean, I know someone personally who has emphysema, and it'd be nice to be able to say to them, there is an option out there for you. Where can we go next? This is Chris. Chris said, can you ask Tom, is he familiar with Michael Talbot's book on holographic universe and his thoughts that we can only see what we believe is real, thus our mind filters out anomalies?
That's Michael Talbot's book, actually, yes. The holographic universe, yeah. I know the book, and it's quite good, but we have gone light years beyond that book at this stage. At the conscious level, we have a thing called the critical factor of the conscious mind that filters out. One of the purposes of hypnosis is to bypass that filter. And then we can get into places of all kinds of amazing things. For example, a lot of people have phobias due to a trauma at some stage of their life that's completely internally blocked. Once we go with hypnosis, we can remove that block, find out what it is, and remove it. So Talbot's book, I recommend it to everybody. It's wonderful, but we can go light years beyond any limitations that are there.
Okay. Paddy wants to know, good to hear, Tom. He says a young man that he knows himself, that Paddy knows, found it difficult to speak. I heard Tom speak on PIR some time ago. He said, I told this chap who was a stroke victim to go to Tom. He went from Kerry to Tip, and he swears by Tom for giving him the ability to speak again. So that's obviously someone who's availed of your, or knows someone who's availed of your services.
I know who he's talking about, yes.
Yeah, okay. And Joan says, trusting your gut instinct, that has prevented many dangerous things happening where you listen to yourself. How does Tom see that?
Absolutely, you must trust your gut instinct. Never, ever, ever ignore it. It's always right.
Yeah, I always say that, listen to your gut, although we should be listening to our heart as well and not just our gut.
Yeah, actually, talking about the brain, we have one brain in our head. We have actually more neural pathways around our heart, which is another brain. And we have infinitely more, again, in our tummy. We have actually got 3 brains, really.
Yeah, and well, they say the stomach is the second brain, isn't it? But we do have to listen.
Third after the heart, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, Tom. We have to finish there. But thanks for coming on the show. We'll hopefully see you down in Waterford in the conference again. You're going to be speaking down there. Before we let you go, I'm going to pass you over to Steve, and Steve's going to get any contact details where people can track you down and find you. Steve.
We'll have to change that because it sounds like a threat.
It does.
Where they can find you. Yeah.
Should they know where we all are anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Well, we do have your website, Tom, totalminddynamics.com, and
by the way, if anybody has any more questions, they can ask them on the website, and I'll answer them all individually.
Great stuff.
You'll be a busy vocal tonight, Tom. Well, I say on the website as well. I think everything is covered. You have your contact details there, and all the about you information. So I think all bases covered.
Brilliant stuff. All right, Tom, just stay with us there for a minute. We're just going over to a musical break, and we'll be back in a minute.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com and people'sinternetradio.com.
Okay, great information there from Tom. His website details are up in the chat room. I will put them up again. Lots of information on the site as to what he covers, what he can help you with, and also his contact details. So yeah, again, as Alan mentioned, Tom's going to be at the Open Minds conference in March. So if you can get down there for that, it's going to be a fantastic weekend. We'll be there as well, so look forward to meeting and greeting some people.
No, that's going to be good. We've asked Tom to do a full show, and he's up for that. He's interested in doing that, so we will get Tom on to do a full show, and we'll go more into detail about the hypnotherapy and what he does and issues and problems there. I think that would be a good show. Now, something that I just want to put out there. All right, for some reason, I don't know why I've been drawn into time travel this week, but I've been looking at a lot of kind of time travel stuff. Now, a few years ago, we had a guest on called Andrew Pasago, and Andrew Pasago said that when he was a child, he was involved with time travel with his father. His father was involved in the military, and for some reason, it was only young kids could go through this plasma time travel system. And he, one of the time travel places he went to was the Gettysburg Address. And there's a photo of him, apparently, black and white photo on that day. He was there in the photo. And this is a few years ago when we spoke to Andrew Pasago. So I started kind of looking at the time travel side. And there is a YouTube station out there called Apex TV. And they do an awful lot of interviews with, inverted commas, time travelers. So I'm going to put it out there to the universe that if there's any time travelers listening to this show, or if you know anybody who's a time traveller, get them to contact us at info@oymradio.com. Now, there's no point ringing up. I'm not having some person who's just escaped from the local nut house ringing up saying I'm a time traveller and there's no evidence. You're going to have to give us some kind of evidence, because anybody could ring up and say, they're a time traveller.
Well, how about the lotto numbers for next week?
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, There has to be you're going to have to convince us in some way. Because anybody could ring up and say they're a time traveller. So we're going to need some evidence in some way. But why not? I mean, there's a whole kind of John Titor fiasco from years ago in the Art Bell show. If people remember it that long ago in the 90s, where John Titor rang up as a time traveller from 1935 at the time, or 2035, and he was saying what went on. And apparently a few things he did said would happened. So I don't really know. It's all, it's all out there at the moment, but I'm just kind of putting it out there for a bit of fun. I mean, we're called Open Your Mind Radio, so something that we haven't really delved into, but it'd be interesting if somebody emailed us and we had a conversation. It might even be just a pre-record. It mightn't be a show, and you might just put it up on YouTube. It mightn't be an actual show itself. But I just thought, hey, why don't we put it out there and see what happens? Now, The guest on the show next week is a chap we haven't had on for a while, a good friend of OYM's called Walter Graham. Now, Walter was involved with removing fluoride, protesting and with groups to remove fluoride from the water in Northern Ireland, which he did successfully. And also he is very knowledgeable and spoke to a load of experts regarding the dangers of Wi-Fi and the mobile phones and all that kind of stuff. Now, there's a few videos that we did a few years ago with Walter on YouTube, video YouTubes. So not only just interviews, but we did video. We did, I think we've a couple of videos that we have with Walter on a YouTube channel, where Walter is in my house and he's actually scanning and he's picking up the Wi-Fi. And this is a few years ago before we got rid of all this stuff. He's picking up the Wi-Fi, he's picking up the deck phones, he's picking up the microwave oven, and he has what's called a smog detector. And he's checking it, and it makes different noises depending on what it picks up. Now, the company who actually makes these smog detectors, they keep promising that they're going to go back into manufacturing and to produce them. But to be honest with you, I've been ringing them on and off for the last few years, and they're never getting there. They're always aiming to get there, but they're never getting there to go and produce them, which is a pity because it was a good product and quite reasonably priced. So, we'll ring him again and see what happens. But Walter is a very, very knowledgeable guy. And anytime we get together, we end up talking for hours on stuff, And we also did a seminar with Walter a few years ago. Remember that, Steve, in the Headford Arms, where Walter talked about the dangers of wireless technology. And we did a free conference where people could come down and listen to Walter talk about it and all the documentation that he had. So that's what's planned for next week. Now, we might be in Studio 2 next week. We might blow off the cobwebs and we get
clean off the clutter,
crank up Studio 2 and then do a report from Studio 2. We're going to maybe have a second guest on as well. We'll sort that out with Trevor, who's organising the Watford conference. We'll see who's on next week and see what we can arrange there. But that's it. What have you got planned for the week? Any news? Anything happening?
Yeah, we'll see what breaks during the week and we'll get it repaired. Can you just say water once again there for Joan?
Water?
Yeah. I don't know why. Joan just says, I love the way you pronounce water. I'm old, I can like things, she says.
Water.
Okay, no, I say, look, I'm going to see where there's a few more jobs I have to get done on the car because it's kind of nearing the old NCT, so that, and then I'm expecting some parts in the morning for the vacuum cleaner, so the wife should be able to get that back up and running and give it a once around the house, the post-Christmas clean, I suppose.
Well, we'll find out more about this issue with all these things breaking and not working and stuff, because I do think it's got to do with this second world dimensional energy shift changing, something in that we'll get more information on it and talk about it. It's not just a coincidence that all this is happening all of a sudden. There's too many things breaking and not working, and it's not just technology, just general things that are happening. And it's not a case that, we're unfortunate. It's just, there's other people saying the same thing, and feeling it. You said during the week that you felt this energy that, you just felt a bit down.
The beginning of the week, yeah. I think it was, it was like I was mourning. That's how I felt. It was like an immense sadness is the only way I can describe it. And, it was just there. It was with me every waking moment and everything I'd done. And it was like, how could I describe it? Like the energy, the life force was just being extracted from me, even in work. Like, I had no energy. I didn't even want to have a conversation with people. I tried to avoid conversation. And even my wife noticed it. She thought there was something up, and I just said, no, I don't know what's wrong. And she's, well, can we talk about it? I says, we can talk all day long, but I don't know what the problem is. It was just, there was something, but it was unexplainable.
Remember that last year I had the same problem?
Yeah.
Remember I said this heavy energy that was just, unbelievable. It's like a heavy weight. And the time that myself and my son were in Aldi doing shopping and we had to check out, and the two of us felt just like what was that? Like, really sad. And my son felt it as well.
Yeah.
And we just said it to each other and said, wow, what was that? And it was there for a few minutes, and then it went. But the one before that lasted a few days. Really, really. And I couldn't, it was like, you know, I was doing everything not to kind of, you know, go mad with it, you know. So it was very kind of strange, you know. A lot of people are saying they're being affected by energy, so there's obviously something going on.
Definitely.
If people want to, I mean, Dolores Cannon has passed away, but she talked about the Second World, and I know Thomas on a couple of his shows, he's mentioned it as well. So check out a few podcasts, I suppose, and make up your own mind. It's all about what resonates with you at the end of the day. It's not just their opinion, and see what you think. That's really it, you know, so much going on. But again, just a plug for the Open Mind Conference in Waterford, 2nd, 3rd, 4th of March. We're going to be down there doing a talk, and we hope to see you all down there and meet up and have a chat. Don't be afraid to come over and say hello. But we have to go. It's that time. We're going to pass over to PIR Radio. So for myself, Alan James, have a great week. Take it easy. If you have any information. Oh, by the way, very quickly, somebody on PIR last week sent us a guest, and he said, can we get Harry Rhodes on? Just to let them know that we contacted Harry during the week, had a great chat with him, and Harry's going to be on in the next few weeks. So thanks for that link. So, but if you have any other suggestions, let us know. Take care. Bye bye.
Okay. Yeah, it's been great. Thanks for everyone who joined us this evening, and also those who are listening to the podcast during the week. As we did mention at the top of the show, if you're a long time listener, well, you don't need to do much. But if you're new and have just discovered OYM for the first time, please do fire us off an email and let us know if you're listening and where you're listening from. Or failing that, just join us on anti-social media. If you just go on to our website, OYMradio.com, you will see the link there for the Facebook page. Okay, we're going to hand over to People's Internet Radio. We'll catch you all again next week. So until then, take care. Bye-bye.